Good evening and welcome to the late show. And if there were a clock for stamina, all of you guys would get top marks, so you're doing pretty good on the aging stamina front. So I'm Lisa Melton. I'm news editor for Nature Biotechnology. So what I do day in and day out is I keep one eye on early stage discovery from startups, from academics, and with the other eye, I'm checking out where those discoveries are going. I care very much about whether the IP is going ahead, whether they're raising money, and whether these discoveries and this innovation is eventually reaching society and changing society for the better. So longevity and aging, so what I just explained was somehow always within the same traditional medical paradigm or model. And I feel, as Sergey gave this amazing introduction to the challenges that perhaps the longevity or measuring health span and monetizing it have a different set of challenges. But fortunately, we have this amazing panel today, and I'm going to ask them all to introduce themselves and be prepared with your questions, because the whole idea is that we have a super dynamic exchange to end this amazing day. So with that, would you like to start, Evelyne?
Thank you so much. All right. Thank you so much, Lisa, for this great introduction, and thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Evelyne Bischof. I'm a clinician, but also hopefully bringing a different perspective today. And I'm working in a university hospital in a clinic, but also I'm advisor of different boards of VCs, and also a co-author of the 101 investment in longevity course that was just launched on LongeVC.degree, Longevity Education Hub.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Garri Zmudze. I'm a general partner at LongeVC. My colleague Sergey just gave you a very deep overview of what we are doing. I'm also a co-founder of Longevity Science Foundation. That is a non-profit that issues non-dilutive grants to early stage research, as well as I advise to Healthy Longevity Medicine Society that is run by Professor Bischof. Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Anastasia Georgievskaya, and I am here representing startup side. So I'm the founder of a startup called Haut.AI, which is AI-backed B2B SaaS for skincare personalization. And I'm actually a veteran of this conference. I have been attending it since I was studying in the university, so I'm really happy to see how it grows. And I'm actually humbled to say that how it has been growing as well, this conference. So happy to be here today. Thank you.
Hi all, Asif, Bhatti. I'm the head of strategy at America's Frontier Fund. Our fund started off about 2.5, 3 years ago after the work of the National Security Commission National Security Commission for Artificial Intelligence in the United States. The chairperson, Eric Schmidt, and a number of the other commissioners kind of underpinned this importance of how the VC community and the capital markets need to bear down on the hard tech, deep tech areas that otherwise are underinvested in. And that's not just a concern from a national security standpoint, but from an economic leadership standpoint as well. So our CEO, Gilman Louis, his claim to fame was he was the CEO of In-Q-Tel, which is, for those who know, the VC to the CIA, and how to take a public mission set and really apply private market speed and investment and capital towards this kind of the expertise he has. So AFF is a mission-focused deep tech fund. We look at industries like AI, semiconductors, longevity, biolife sciences, advanced materials, advanced energy, for the purposes of making sure that leadership is really driving a collective societal benefit, and that doesn't just hold within the borders of the United States, but in fact, in a separate hat that I wear as the executive director for Quad Investors Network, expands over to the global markets as well, and the importance of making sure that we take really core sciences, areas where we build stuff with our hands in the labs, and really put capital to them. So looking forward to the conversation.
Thank you. Hi, Michael Ringel, Managing Director and Senior Partner at BCG. Been there 25 years. BCG is a $12 billion consulting company I think part of the perspective I can bring here is a little bit where pharma starts to get interested, which ultimately is one of the main ways to bring these molecules to market.
Fantastic. So I'm going to start with a question to the startup on the panel, Anastasia. Could you share how you managed to start as a student, set up a company, and within 1 year be profitable? What's the secret sauce?
So first of all, to set all expectations right, we didn't become profitable in 1 year from foundation, but I would say when things started to become serious and we started to generate revenues, we became profitable pretty fast. I think that I'd like to add to what has been said by VCs, and like Sergey from LongeVC today is, we started to focus more on productizing the technology, so not only developing their AI technology for skin analysis, but understanding how to package it, what should be the pricing policy, who we should be serving with software. And second aspect, I would say, was being very sensitive to our customers' feedback, which for us are CROs who are performing different skincare products and therapeutics tests, also skincare manufacturers, and listening to what challenges we're facing and road mapping with them together how our technology can address these challenges, and not being blunt to feedback when it was not positive, and staying realistic, not thinking your technology is the best just because you're the first one to build it. And I think the final part is pretty important, go-to-market strategy. So we started to build reseller partnerships and distributor networks, and also we became part of Microsoft Pegasus program, which is acceleration program for, they say, not a baby, but maybe like a toddler startup who already knows how to work but doesn't do it very well, to help us also with selling through Microsoft. So I would say probably everything I have mentioned is related to business. It doesn't mean that our R&D stopped, but we just started to realize that we need to be more balanced from the perspective business versus tech, and this is when we became profitable.
Nice. You were first, though. Garri, you were involved, right?
Yes, we are proud investors of Haut.AI, and also I knew Anastasia. I met her when she was working in silica medicine many years ago, and I was one of the early investors in silica medicine, so I was always following Anastasia's progress, and yeah, so I'm very proud for this investment.
Great. When we were talking earlier, you were telling me about how you were looking for synergy and that you felt networking was one of the most important aspects in having a broad view and bringing things together. Could you expand a little on that?
Yes, because networking is everything for us as an early stage VC. So we're building relationship with other funds, with founders, with our LPs, with tech transfer departments of the universities, with our advisory board. So I think networking is most important, and that's actually a value that we're bringing to our portfolio companies as well.
Fantastic. But there are pitfalls, right, with investing, and this is something that Evelyne has some thoughts about and might want to share, and what it is that you do.
Sure, with pleasure. So it's always difficult to talk about the pitfalls, but I think it's also important to educate everybody, right? We were talking a lot during these days about educating the patients, the clinicians, but more and more often investors are reaching out to us, to scientists, to clinicians for advice, because there's just such an abundance right now on possibilities or offers where to invest, and it's not always easy to maybe discern which of those areas are, safe enough, evidence-based enough, going towards an evidence base that might be occurring soon. So it's important to know that there are areas that might be not safe and that are maybe not appreciated by clinicians or by patients, and that might be just risky in terms of the health in general. So when we're talking about longevity, the first commandments should still be do no harm. And I guess it's not only about that. So even if there is maybe a commercial benefit in that, and somebody is driven only by this. I guess at some point of time, and what we are observing now, and I think also you mentioned this in your recent article, right, in Nature Biotech, which I appreciate so much, is with going down of the safety or with going down of a project, your reputation also goes down. As a scientist, clinician, and most surely also as an investor or as a business person. So our course is talking a little bit about that, where especially the healthy longevity ecosystem, so the clinics, the private clinics, potentially some supplements and other substances, where are the areas that we see a potential, where is the investment flowing into, and where there's definitely a pitfall around the corner.
Mm-hmm. So due diligence. But apart from due diligence, Asif, this question is for you. What are you looking for when you look at a startup and trying to decide whether to invest?
Sure. So let me pull on your thread, and then I'll come to the answer the question as well. So I think historically investors have really been short-sighted, and I'll readily say that. I think they lack the understanding from a technical standpoint often, and it's actually a struggle in terms of the entrepreneurs, especially in the hard sciences, and probably also in the bio-life science and longevity fields, to communicate to traditional investors at least the meaningful moonshot or monumental kind of shift in the way some innovation might or discovery may change. So I think to that point, Evelyne, I think folks like yourselves and not only help, I guess, train investors to grow and understand that more, but I think there is a new breed of investors that is now the subcurrent of a lot of separate government funding that's incentivizing science and true kind of research as well. To your point, what do investors look like? I think the earlier talk actually highlighted this up front. It's the team. I think ultimately, like if you're talking about doing something in longevity, there's an expectation that you're an expert in that field, but it can't solely be that your whole team is just that as well. Success isn't predicated just on the papers that you may publish, but also the commercialization and the channel strategy you may take, and frankly also the regulatory strategy that this field in particular will have to face across many countries. As one example, there's a startup in Scotland that I had met that really focused on neurodegenerative diseases and how robotics can help provide care to individuals. And of course there's challenges there, but their strategy was to go to another nation outside of where they were residing to go help service and pilot some of those technologies there, given the shortage of clinician staff and clinical staff. So things like that, especially when VCs and investors like myself are looking at a company, the novelty of the science is fantastic, but the novelty of how you approach the business landscape, and as an example of, hey, let's not do it here and go over there because they don't have enough nurses, that type of creativity makes an incredible point of success for startups, especially when the scientific discovery is incredible and powerful.
Oh, great points. So a startup is successful, grows, matures. At some point, they need pharma input, not always, but generally. How can a longevity company attract pharma?
So I'm going to make a long-term point and a short-term point. And the long-term one is that no single company can do, but it's something for all of us to work together on. And I made a big point of this in my presentation on day one, but I'll repeat it here. The environment in which we're operating is not something we have to take as a fixed. It is malleable. And if you think about how oncology became a priority, cancer care became a priority, that started way upstream from pharma. That started with a social movement to explain why this mattered and to get people interested in it. And that drove political action. That drove legislation and funding, and the funding drove research, and the research drove discoveries, which drove startups, which ultimately came to pharma. And that chain is something we have to replicate here. We are part of a social movement, and we should not forget that. And that's too much to put on any single company to have to solve that on their own, but collectively that is something that we can do, and it matters. Like, this is, the geroscience hypothesis is something that is going to add life and health to everyone in the world, and we should be proud of that and strong advocates of it. That's the long-term story. That is not something that, obviously, if you're, and you're trying to get your next round of funding or trying to get, a licensing deal done, that you have that much time for, but it should always be part of the story. In the short term, there's a pretty straightforward path, which is data. You have to have a high probability of success of, treating a lot of people or helping a few people a lot, and have a set of information that shows efficacy and safety in patients, and that's super compelling. And so all the choices you make around what's the right indication to go after, what's the right endpoint, how do I build the story here is, obviously critical. And it becomes a very simple story, right? Do I have a proof of concept study that I can show? Then you're golden. And if you don't, then it's very hard. So it's a pretty straightforward short-term answer, which is the decision makers are very data-driven, and you have to do the work to basically be able to show, is there a likelihood you're going to be able to help people?
You have to convince them. Fair enough. So with that, I open to everyone for questions. And what I'd like to ask, in the spirit of networking, is that you introduce yourself, say who you are and who your question's for. So, floor is yours.
Hello, my name is Andrea Olsen. I'm one of the Inspire Longevity ambassadors here, and I have a question for the VCs. So, how do you choose which market to invest to and which country to invest into the market? And I wonder, because it must be hard to choose the specific country and market. What characteristics do you look at?
I'll start off, and then others please chime in. I think for certain funds, they take geography as the constraint, and others take industry as the constraint, which is, I think, what you're hitting to. I think this is where the entrepreneur can also be selective on who they wish to receive funding from as well, because to your point, if you're going to go seek funding from a VC from a country that you have little tie from, or has another set of concerns to you, you may not want to do that. On the flip side, if that VC also doesn't invest in your industry, it's going to be a really hard match, to the point that I think Sergey made earlier as well. So I think for when you are an entrepreneur, the importance is that you also start to find who are the set of like-minded investors who not only have the appetite to understand what you're doing, but the desire to grow that. And so you speak about regionally. For AFF, even by nature of our name, of course, elicits an American focus, but it isn't necessarily at all the case. Our philanthropic engagement has come from folks like Peter Thiel, Eric Schmidt, Thomas Tull, Mark Cuban, Palmer Luckey. All of those folks are multinational in their own corporations and also in their own selection of innovation as well. And so for us, at least I can speak for AFF, like the purpose is very much to say what's the best frontier of the science and then go from there.
I would add on that our fund is geographically agnostic. We don't care about where it comes from. The majority of our portfolio companies come from the US still, because there's a culture for startups, grants. So when we look at the US startup, usually IP is in place, team is in place. So that's totally investable. That's something that we not all the time we see from other countries, right? There are interesting programs also for relocating startups from the developed countries to the US or to European community. We'll also look at that. So yeah, we are now expanding in Asia, so we want to have more deal flow from this region, Hong Kong, Singapore, China, of course. Yeah, so that's the answer. I think that we'll see more startups from Asia very soon.
It's expanding over there.
Yes, hi, my name is Angel Versetti. I run a family office out of Monaco, and we're heavily into deep tech. And we've been trying to invest into longevity for the past 3 years. The problem for us, actually, is that it seems to me that when we look at these deals, that even the best experts in the world, in the end, they have no idea whether something is workable or not, even at the scientific, technological level. Forget about the stuff that people mention here about having the right founders, having the right business acumen. We never even reached those stages. We had the problem of assessing a piece of technology and having the smartest people in the industry, half of them saying that technology is going to work, and the other half is saying that's hopeless, that's not going to work. So we never were able to allocate a lot of capital because I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, but it seems to me that when we speak about longevity, it's a big word that consists of a lot of small niches, and nobody is even sure which particular niche is going to work. And then some other people say, well, it's a combination of all of them, but like a few speakers here said, well, you can't bet on a lot of things. So how are we as investor supposed to choose the right niche to bet on? And if the risk is so high and I'm only looking at 2x, I might as well stick to crypto or something else, because I'm risking so much and I'm only looking at 2x as the upper quartile. So as an investor, I want to be excited about longevity. I want to live forever, but I don't want to just burn my cash waiting for that to happen.
Thank you for that. If I can start. With all my respect to crypto, we can never get you 100x in 2 days. That's the wrong place. So that's one. Another advice is that you, as a family office, I believe the best route is to allocate your funds in different VCs around the globe, where you can choose the one you like, the one has the best expertise, the best advisory board, and actually the best access to deal flow. So this is something, I think that's where you can build relationship and where you can educate yourself and define for yourself what's your sweet spot. So I think that's my answer.
And what I'd add to that is, so biotech is high risk, high reward. The human body is complex, so we're often at the edge of science there, and it's not an engineering problem, right? It's an exploration problem. One of the ways to think about it when there's uncertainty is not how do I get certainty from asking experts, but what is the right test that allows me to validate or invalidate the hypothesis as efficiently as possible? And do I believe that test exists, and what would it cost to get there, and is that the next step? Because if the answer, if there's a relatively simple test and the answer is no, okay, the hypothesis is invalidated, you haven't lost much. And if the answer is, oh, there's something big here, then you've very cheaply validated where you should be putting your investment. So it's a kind of different lens than, hey, a priori, I know the answer. But it is, okay, what is the analytical path that allows me to understand what the truth in the world is, as efficiently as possible?
Yeah, I would just very briefly will echo what was said earlier. I think as a family office or any individual that might wish to invest, you have the option of direct investing and fund of funds as well. And so I think that it just depends on your risk appetite and frankly the time on your calendar if you want to go diligence a bunch of deals yourself, or if you'd prefer other VCs with the network access, deal flow, expertise, as was mentioned. I think that becomes the way you hedge your portfolio and the set of decisions as well that you need. And for entrepreneurs, that's the same. It goes the same way. I think when you look at investors as well, there's family offices that make direct investments because they're excited about you, they're excited about what you're doing, they're excited about the value and the mission, which is great. But then they're making that direct investment on the other side with VC. There's a portfolio of investments, and I'm not expecting all 15, 16 companies to succeed. I'm expecting one. So there's, at least for the limited partner who invests in a fund, it hedges their bets a little bit.
And if I can add something, like a lot of our LPs, they're actually joining rounds when there is space in our portfolio companies. So I think that's also the way to create like your own investment, betting on one of the VCs in the industry together.
Question at the front.
I'm Marco Dotto. I'm a serial entrepreneur in genomics. I've been in longevity for a while. Turned into the dark side, VC, LP, angel investor, and so on. I'm now putting together a syndicate of investors to actually help VCs to get more money, and I'm trying to de-risk my investment. The gentleman there, I'm trying to de-risk my investment, basically putting the bets on multiple VCs, because yes, it's biotech. You won't expect 100x from a VC fund or from a single investor, from a single investment maybe, but if you wanted the risk, then you need to bet on many, because biotech is like that. It's not longevity problem, it's biotech problem. You don't know if the clinical trial is going to go well or not, despite the fact that the science behind the molecule is good or not. I think like my question was like, what do you think is could be like a way to improve the ecosystem? Because the problem is that longevity biotech VCs are very few. We're talking less than 10. If we really look at those that do really longevity and not biotech, and that cosmetically say they do longevity, and they're very small. I mean, yours is an example. We're talking about 20 something millions, and the next one is going to be 150, but it's not like a huge VC fund. And the ecosystem is all like that. We don't have like, huge funds with hundreds of millions in their hands. We don't have tens and tens of VCs. We have very few. So what do you think is the way to bring money from gentlemen like that and a lot of family offices and rich people to the field? Because we have, Altus Lab and a couple of others, and everything else is micro.
Thank you. It's a really good question. I think that events like that, actually, that's a good place, and to say that the industry is looking for new people, new professionals, journalists, investors, entrepreneurs. So, we just started, so I believe there will be more and more people and here investing, and I'm also pretty much confident that the space right now is not very competitive. It's more, we collaborate, we partner with other funds, we co-invest, we share expertise, and I like this, that there is, and I think there is a lot of room for newcomers.
Great, so we have one question at the back, one here, and quick one. Otherwise, all your questions, we can continue at the bar.
I will be quick. My name is Bruno Balle, and I'm co-founder at Anibiome. And just for the question for the gentleman from Monaco family office, from startup perspective, nobody is ever secure in anything. 50% of people would say yes for Google, 50% no. Tesla the same, Amazon the same. But as startups, what we are looking is not somebody who will know 100% that will succeed, but somebody who will be part of our team and support us and find solution with us. And my question is for Anastasia and for Garri, is that perspective. Anastasia, what are you looking from investor? Are you looking for someone who is 100% sure that you will succeed? And is that the reason you chose LongeVC and vice versa? Or you're looking for someone who will be your partner for the next couple of years?
I can start first saying that, first of all, even before LongeVC existed, Garri has been helping out with whatever we were asking, and, trying to be supportive with things which related to technology or, intros, and overall being there for us. And at some point he told me, you can just text me on Messenger. People were using Facebook those times still. But what I'd like to say is also talking with other founders, I think that especially when you raise your first round, you're kind of just looking for investment, whenever you have no burn, no cash on hands, and you kind of need to support your runway. A feedback I heard from many founders that VCs are not always helping. Quite often they're just making your life less nice in a ways that it includes some micromanagement or maybe not being industry expert enough. And this is why I think you need to raise from investors to have similar investments. They kind of try to apply frameworks that maybe succeeded in the past, but it's like survival bias. One of my startups did that, now let all of my portfolio companies follow this framework. So I think the most important part for us when we are talking with investors, and again, it's some of the feedback I heard from my peers, is to make sure that investor adequately understands what your software is doing or your product is doing and has experience in the field. Otherwise, maybe it will be a rare find, but you will find absolutely amazing person from different industry, and you will connect, and it will be very successful partnerships. But in some cases, I think you can fall in the trap of being with an investor who doesn't understand what your product does, doesn't understand to which customers it serves, and therefore you will have lots of conflict, which actually is not worth it, because time is the most precious, the most important, and the most expensive currency any startup has.
Great.
And definitely, I would say when we are investing our time with, investing our time with also building in partnership with LongeVC, this is money well spent.
Mm-hmm. One quick question, and then you.
My name is Luisa from St. Bartholomew Hospital in London and NIH in the US. First of all, a comment. Thank you so much for the values you're promoting here. I thought it's going to be a conversation about money. I feel it's a conversation about building teams, and I think humanity needs more of that than targets. I have two questions. One, maybe to relate to our colleague's question, was what do you do as a VC member or as a startup founder when you have a scientific board and, let's say, two specialists do not agree? I think that was one of the things you asked. How do you make a decision? And second, for some of us, the beginning of our careers or mid-careers, but very early in longevity, how do you select your advisory board, and what kind of advice would you give to people who would want to join some of these boards? Thank you.
Good question.
I'll take the first one. I think, and you should take the second one. Investments that you get consensus on aren't going to make you money. They're going to be safe. That's it, period. It's the ones where you have one person pounding the table and saying, I want to put a check here. I will work with this person, like this partnership here, and saying, I will make sure to chart their path, right? That's really the one that's going to make you money. So hopefully that answers your question, but I won't belabor it.
Yeah, thank you. How to combine scientific advisory boards? So our scientific advisory board was combined by the competences. So actually, we don't send them everything that's just related to their niche competence. So, and to invest in the startup, we need at least 2 positive opinions from our advisory board. Relevant advisors. So yeah, the way it's structured, if we don't have an okay from the advisory board, we just don't invest.
Thank you. Last question.
So, hi, my name is Kostas. I'm representing ND Capital. We're deploying right now 300 million. We're both in San Francisco and Lausanne, Switzerland. And I'm here mainly because I'm trying to understand what longevity investments are. So, as an investor, we will go to an opportunity that makes a business case. There is an exit, and we will make money out of that, whatever it is, 2, 3, 4, 10x. And we're in life sciences. We understand all that I see here, all the mechanisms, etc. So the question is, what differentiates a non-longevity investor to a longevity investor? What is it? What defines a longevity investor as a longevity investor in life sciences? What is this one characteristic?
So there's probably, how many people are in this room? There may be that many different opinions plus one. But I'll tell you my perspective. So it is unrealistic right now to think about a lifespan extension as an endpoint for approval. So you're not going to get a drug approved for that in any sort of near-term time frame. Even if there were a regulatory pathway for that, it takes a long time to run a lifetime trial. So that's not how you can define it. The way that I conceptualize it is there are a set of pathways we know that modulate lifespan in model organisms. Those pathways, we also have evidence they modulate the incidence of age-related disease. They help prevent it, they may slow the progression of it, and so on. And if you have a company that's working on a pathway that is one of those, that to me defines longevity. the approval path for that is going after an indication. You're trying to modulate a disease. That's the only way forward, and frankly, that is a good way to demonstrate value. There may be a side benefit of some longevity impact down the road from those. The other sort of curious aspect of this, if you do believe the geroscience hypothesis that these pathways modulate the rate of aging, and all these age-related diseases, are going up exponentially with your biological age, and it's adjusting that. It's quite likely that these molecules will affect many different diseases in different indications, and so that is why there's this question of, okay, what's the path forward? Maybe I can bring this asset forward to modulate immunosenescence. Or maybe I should bring it forward to, think about the incidence of metabolic disorder, and and on down the line, like neuroscience, neurodegeneration, oncology, cancer incidence, et cetera. So that's part of the complexity of operating this space, is picking indications. It's kind of always complex for biotech, but here, where you may have a very wide range, it becomes even more complex, and that's where you have to take an approach, which is, okay, where is the scientific hypothesis most validated, most likely to have success? That's a kind of a reasonable size indication to go after, and go for that first. There are trade-offs. Maybe you're picking a smaller indication as a result, but usually proving out the hypothesis is the most important step.
Wow, and with that, I'm sure you'll agree this was an absolutely fascinating discussion, and please help me thank our amazing panelists. Thank you. And see you all at the bar.